says, well, once upon a time, there were a lot of bad people who made God very angry. And so on with the story. Let me ask you two things, though. What is the point of this Noah story? And how does God come out in the end? Many groups begin by suggesting, as the sinners are all destroyed in the story, that the point is that sinners better wake up or they can expect to be destroyed, smashed like bugs. As for how well God comes out in the story, not very well if you ask me. He seems very angry and destructive. Almost everyone ends up dead, smashed like bugs, as a result of his anger at their sins. You may point to the end of the story and say, well, he does make a covenant with Noah and humanity at the end. To this I say, so when the mass murderer says he won't do it anymore, that makes it all okay? And this is a story that we tell to children. We do, and we give them little arks with animals that can go into the ark 2 by 2 just before God kills everybody. So, how did a story that portrays God so poorly ever make it into the Bible? Let's take a look at its roots, which are very old, neither Jewish nor Israelite. Before the Old Testament version that we know, put in the form we have it in roughly the 6th century BC, there were much older versions. In fact, we have clay tablets from roughly 700 BC with a story preserved in Akkadian in cuneiform. Akkadian was the Babylonian language. The narrative was part of a larger series of stories called the Gilgamesh epic, about a man named not Noah but Utnapishtim. We know that there was an even older Sumerian version about neither Noah nor Utnapishtim but Ziusudra, the son of Uburtutu of Shurupak, dated from about 2000 BC, or even earlier. Apparently flood stories were popular. It makes sense that floods would play a major part in human consciousness in the ancient world. You have to have access to water to survive. It becomes even more critical when you take up farming. The problem is, of course, getting the water where you want it. It's easiest to locate yourself close to water so that you don't have to lug it very far. Easy, however, isn't always wise. When you live close to water, you become subject to its tendency to overflow its banks in wet, rainy seasons. Virtually all early human groups will have some story of a terrible tragedy when their ancestors were wiped out in a flood. We don't like things to be coincidental. We like to have reasons for things. And what we'll find is that God, or the gods, will often get the blame for our sometimes imprudent decisions. So, we're going to take a look at the Akkadian story of Utnapishtim because it will help us see the roots of our own story buried in an older, non-Israelite version. It begins with the hero Gilgamesh, who is torn up because his good friend Enkidu dies a tragic death. Seeking some way to escape death himself, Gilgamesh goes searching for some way to achieve immortality. Having heard that the man Utnapishtim and his wife had become immortals, he journeys to him, and in the 11th tablet of the Epic of Gilgamesh, he asks, "Tell me, Utnapishtim, how did you and your wife become immortal and join the divine assembly?" "Well, Gilgamesh, let me tell you the story of a divine conspiracy, a secret plot which the gods devised to exterminate humanity." You can see already we've got a key difference here. We've got polytheism. These Akkadians, they weren't monotheists. The story continues. 1,200 years had not passed when the land extended and the people multiplied. The land was bellowing like a bull. The god Enlil got disturbed with their uproar. The gods decided to flood the earth. But Ea, god of fresh water, whispered to the reed walls of my hut the plans of Enlil, leader of the divine assembly. You see, what we have here are some good gods and some bad gods. Enlil, the bad god, forces all the gods to promise not to reveal their terrible plan to humanity, but Ea gets around it by not speaking to Utnapishtim himself, but to his hut. So the god Ea says, "Listen to me, wall. You reed mat. Pay attention to me. Pull down your house and build a barge. Abandon all your possessions. Save only your life. Take specimens of every living thing on board. Make the ark as wide as it is long, with a roof like the dome of the heavens." I told Ea that I would obey his orders, but then asked him, "What shall I tell the people and the elders of the city?" He said, "Tell them I have learned that Enlil has sentenced me to death, so I cannot stay here in Shurupak, his city, but must move to the coast where Ea is Lord. First I built the hulls of the ark, 10 dozen cubits high and 10 dozen cubits wide. I constructed a top deck and 6 lower decks, separated into compartments by 9 bulkheads. Then I caulked the ark with bitumen and asphalt thinned with oil. Stepping aside from the story for just a second, you can readily hear the echoes of our own story here in the building of the ark. We continue.